Salute. That's the dark light right there, man. The sun. You see that window back there. Salute, man. I appreciate everybody being in the joint. Y'all put a one in the chat if y'all can hear and see me loud and clear, man. Put a one in the chat if you can hear and see me loud and clear. Let's get ready. Let's get ready. Salute to the Alpha Sphere. Bless up to the Green Level Gang. Salute to the Kingdom of Ray. Bless up to the kings in the kingdom. Mello, Mill J, Natural to the Game, Markel, Famo, salute. King Abraham, salute to your brother. Travis C, what up, man? Good to see you in the joint. Royal T, what up? Keith Tapping, what up, KT? All right, man, let's get ready to do this thing. We ain't gonna stay in here too long, man. I know it's kind of early, and you know what I'm saying, you guys, if you're on the East Coast, man, if you're at work, you're taking a lunch break right now. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably on your way to work. And if you're in the dirty South, man, then you just pilling around, man, trying to wait for lunchtime to come. So while we all got a minute, let's go ahead and get it in, man. So someone asked me, what did I do? What steps did I take to overcome the things that may have presented themselves as obstacles in my life from my past experiences? I said, fortunately, there weren't a lot of things that I had to go through. I did go through some things, but I was blessed enough to have been told information that I didn't understand when it was told to me. But when I got to the point in life where I needed it, I was able to recollect on those exchanges of information and apply them to my life in most situations. But for the things that I did have to get over, I first had to understand what trauma is. See, we look at trauma and we look at it and say, okay, my parents did this, so this is the result. Or, you know, our relationship was like this, so this is the result. That's not what trauma is. Trauma is the experience that affected you in such a negative manner that it's been mostly suppressed from your recollection. You are this way, and it's not normal, but you can't even recall what made you that way. It's one of those situations where you say, this is just how I am. But then you look around and you realize that other people aren't like that. That's what trauma is. So when you think about it, you have to first understand what that is in order to get past it. So in most cases, when you think it's just something, if you can recollect the experience, then you're like, okay, well, I know what it is. I'm blah, blah, blah. I can handle it. I know how to make the adjustment, but it's the things that you can't recollect. This is where the need for counseling comes in. And many of us, especially men, don't seek counseling, even when we need it. Now, not all of us need it. You don't need counseling for every single thing that, someone deems, inappropriate or anything like that. I'm talking about the things that have shaped you in a way that affect your life, that affect your ability to perform normally, that affect your ability to engage normally with people in all facets of life, in all types of relationships, not just intimate ones. So when you think about the fact that trauma is the experience that affected you in a negative manner so much that it has been mostly suppressed from your memory banks, you have to also keep in mind that unfortunately the results thereof are very real, and they are dictating how you interact with the world at large, for better and worse. Not all of those experiences have caused you to react to the world in a negative way. Some of those things benefit you tremendously, but nevertheless, the result of those traumatic experiences are dictating how you interact with the world and the people in it. And that's something that we must all understand. Now, when you really think about it, let me move my computer over there a little bit, man. When you really think about it, the more significant a role this experience played in your development, the more deeply it is to likely be buried in the recess of your mentality, of your psyche, of your memory banks, of your recollection. So the worse the situation is, the more likely it is that you can't even remember what it is. There are some situations in courtrooms where You hear somebody who did something to someone, who offended someone, who was a perpetrator, then they get in court and they literally get up there and say that they can't remember what happened. And we look at it and say, well, that's impossible. You did it. You got to remember it. No, it's not. You have to understand that it's kind of like being inebriated. That's why I suggest that no one is ever inebriated. If you want to have a little taste from time to time, that's on you. But as far as becoming inebriated, that's a traumatic experience. Anything that puts you in a state of mind where you can't remember the events that led to the result that you're experiencing at any particular time is a traumatic experience. So being intoxicated is a traumatic experience. So it's almost like this: the greater the pain, the greater the propensity for our minds to shelter our hearts and spirits from the traumatic experience by simply forgetting it and replace it with something else. Like a lot of times you can't remember the negative things, but you can remember all the positive things. Now, isn't it ironic that we cannot remember any of the negative things, but we can remember all the positive things? That's our mind's way of protecting us. Because if you look back on life and everything is just all bad, all doom and gloom, how are you ever supposed to view life from a positive perspective? I was just talking to someone, man, not long ago, and they were talking to me about a situation. And as I was listening to them, I was like, there is no way that, that situation hasn't affected them in a negative manner. And as they talked about it, I could see their energy shift. I could see the results of that trauma. I could see it's when they talked about it, they were picking pieces and parts of it like they couldn't even remember the experience. And so they were piecing it together as they went. Like as they talked about it, they started to remember certain parts. And I sat and watched this. Of course, I'm a very intent listener, so I just listened. And then at the end, I said, all of that you just finally pieced together, all of that you put together, you do have the right to be angry about that. You do have the right to hold that person accountable for being that way. You do have the right to look at a situation and say, that is something I would never do to someone. And so, in order for you to do that to me, I can't deal with a person like you. And I don't view you from a positive perspective. So, you don't have to look back on everything and view it from a positive perspective. You just have to know what you went through in order to make you who you are. You can never become who you're meant to be if you don't know the things that made you who you are. Because if you don't know what made you who you are, you don't know if you really are that way, or if that was a traumatic experience that shaped you into being what you are. That's a very serious situation. When you don't have a healthy mind, you can't have a healthy body. You can't have a healthy spirit because the mind is the one thing that cannot be controlled. You cannot control what you think. So you have to control what you have access to. Once you have access to it, it is a thought in your brain forever. Think about a horror movie you've seen. There was a movie called Saw. Saw, I think it was Saw 5. But there was this guy that had him in his contraption that was just, man, it was a terrible contraption. You know how many years ago that movie came out? But every now and then, I still envision that. It's the only movie I've ever seen that has something horrible like that in it that I envision from time to time. Other movies I've seen, I can't remember nothing. I've watched movies the second time, man, and didn't even realize I watched them the first time. But that scene from that movie is the reason that I don't watch movies like that anymore. So when you replace those negative experiences, those traumatic experiences by simply forgetting and replacing that memory bank with the joy of maybe a childhood fishing trip with our father or grandpa, or maybe, the time our grandma let us, lick the bowl after she made cookies, after she made cake or any of those things. That's how we navigate through it when we're still young and impressionable. But when you become an adult, it affects your ability to be able to interact positively with people. And sometimes those people are positive, but you still can't interact with them positively because you have too many hangups. It's like driving between a tree line and mountains and then suddenly being clear of both. The sun blinds us, but only for a split second until we can let our visor down or put our shades on. But for that split second, we don't remember what was there. We didn't see it. We have no idea. That's how the brain works when it comes to suppressing these traumatic experiences. It will say, okay, that is too much. We can't handle that. It'll just block it out. It'll put a blinder over there. That experience is in your brain, but it'll put a blinder over there and just hold that blinder up to it, and you just won't see it. You won't ever see it. But we go into life and we have these things with us, these actions, these outlooks that are detrimental to our life, that are detrimental to us being who we want to be and getting to where we want to get, but we don't know why it is. So what do? We're angry. We fester in our frustration for not being able to do that thing, not being able to get over that hump. So the best thing you could ever do is dig into your psyche and find out. And we'll talk about a couple of steps to doing that later on in the show. Now, when that split second happens and you have a chance to let your visor down or put your shades on, you can see clearly again, but you will never recall what was there during that moment of blindness unless you go back, unless you get off the exit and go back around and come around this time with your shades on and your visor down so you can get some reprieve from the sun, and then you can see what you need to see. And many times we don't know that process. So we go through life and we talk to other people who are dealing with the same type of trauma instead of understanding that as you go through life, you upgrade the people who are around you because you need to upgrade the result that you get. And so if I'm filled with trauma, and then you're filled with trauma, and they're filled with trauma, and he's filled with trauma, and she's filled with trauma, then we're all around each other, and all we can do is leech from each other because we all need help dealing with the results of our trauma. That's why in a certain environment, everybody in that environment is like that. And when I say everybody, I don't mean 100% of the people, but I mean a high enough percentage where the environment never changes because the majority of the people, the overwhelming majority of the people, have that same trauma. You go to certain environments, people come out of there with PTSD. You understand? I had a touch of it myself. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to go anywhere without being strapped. It took me a long time. It took me, man, it took me a decade. It took me a decade, and I had elevated so many different levels of life to where I was in such a peaceful environment, man. I was in a positive, peaceful environment, but that PTSD still had me believing that I was going to run into a situation at any given time, walking out to the mailbox, like going in the backyard. I was like, man, so I had to dig down and see what was that about. And then I realized what it was about. It was the trauma from being in an environment that was dog eat dog, shark bite shark. The rest of the world isn't like that in a physical way. Yes, anything can happen anywhere, but there's an environment where it's like that every day, all day, at any given time. What may be declared on you at any given time by the people you don't know, by the people you know, by your family, by your friends, by your enemies, by anyone. Tell me how you come out of that without having PTSD. You know, how do you come out of that without having post traumatic stress syndrome? And many of us are in those environments. It could be something simple as the interaction between your parents when you were young. If it wasn't a peaceful interaction, then guess what? You probably have some PTSD from that. You understand? You probably have some situations, and there are some children who grew up in a household, man, and they saw some serious things happen. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe one parent isn't here anymore. So you think about those things, man. You go into life with those things because you have to protect yourself. Self-preservation is no one law of the land, but it's even more serious when it comes to your own personal body. Your mind wants to protect you. So when let's say you're not exercising, you're not eating right, you're not doing any of those things, your mind starts to tell you, hey, you need to do something different before your body starts to let you know it's too late. Now you're having these problems. Way before you get to the point where you're having problems, your mind tries to tell you. Your mind will tell you that that over there you're eating, it don't even taste good anymore. Your mind will tell you that that over there is making you sick. Your mind will tell you that not getting enough sleep is making you this. Or your mind will tell you drinking too much coffee is making you this. Your mind has one job, and that is to use whatever wisdom, understanding, and knowledge it can muster to protect you. And if all else fails and you won't respond, it simply blocks out what it needs to block out to keep you from losing it. Now, when it comes to blocking things out, we tend to be pretty proficient at blocking out memories attached to certain extreme emotions, anger, shame, ridicule, fear, helplessness, abandonment. Many of us have these abandonment issues. You know, if you grew up in a home with one parent, you probably have an abandonment issue. You understand? If you grew up and you had to live with your grandparents, you probably have an abandonment issue. You could have lost your parents, but you still may have an abandonment issue because they weren't there. Helplessness is one that many of us, especially men, we like to block out helplessness. The worst thing that we can feel as a man is helpless. And so we'll block out those times. We'll block them out. We won't even remember. Somebody can come up to you and say, man, you remember back in this, that, man, this happened. You'd be like, man, that didn't happen. You'd be ready to argue him down. You'd be like, no, man, that didn't happen. You get me mixed up with somebody else. But it did happen. But that's a trigger for you. That's a trigger that causes you to view yourself in a way that's not going to allow you to move forward effectively and efficiently in the life that you're building right now. And this is a serious situation, man. This is not something to take lightly or play about or any of that. This is a serious situation that we have to understand takes place in the majority of us. At some point, the majority of us are dealing with these type of traumas. At some point. The thing is, how and when do you get past them? That's the question. See, you have to understand this. Many times people on the receiving end of certain violations find it almost impossible to recall the event. So you'll see somebody sitting in the courtroom, they call them up there and say, well, can you explain to us what happened? Blah, blah, blah. They can't recall. They can't. During this situation, they just blocked it out. They tuned everything out. That's another mechanism that the body does. The body transports you to someone else. Your body, your mind will telepathically transport your body to somewhere else. So you can't even be present to deal with what is actually taking place in real life. But the effects of that event are there. The effects of that event are there. So when you hear people saying, man, all of those are like this, and all those people are like this, and all those people are like this, and all that group of people is like this, those people have trauma, man. That's trauma talk. That's trauma talk. When you see somebody in a relationship that should have been over, and then they go right back and get in the same type of relationship, and they go right back and get to the same type of relationship, or they stay in a relationship that continues to be more and more and more negative and more and more and more detrimental to their psyche. That's trauma bonding. How often do we see this? Blueface and his girl, trauma bonded. Young Jock and his wife, trauma bonded. Think about these things, man. Kylie and Travis Scott, trauma bonded. Lamar Odom and I think it was Chloe, trauma bonded. These are really the types of things that take place, man. You go through so much, you see so much that you have to be protected from your own self. From your own self. You can't navigate life anymore. Sometimes even the perpetrator of said offense genuinely forgets. They genuinely don't remember, don't recall. And so there are people right now who are incarcerated for something that they truly believe they did not do. They do not remember the act. They don't remember. So they're fighting for their freedom, even though all of the evidence is stacked against them. They are in the library. They are trying to look at their case. They're trying to do GoFundMe's to get money for an attorney. And then the attorney looks at the case and won't even take it. And so this man thinks the world is against him. This woman thinks the world is against her because they simply weren't present in that moment that they committed such an atrocious act. Now, here's the reality of it. It's not worth placing blame as if a choice has been made to suppress certain memories or selective memory is at play. This isn't selective memory. This is your mind doing what doing what it has to do to protect you. And when you understand this, then you start to realize how there were some people who do things and don't even know that what they're doing is wrong, or did things and don't even think that what they did was wrong. Sometimes the effect of the event on someone else is what is blocked out, especially if it's someone close to you. Will and Jada, trauma bonded. And many people are in those situations. And the thing is, they don't even know why they continue to go back for that same negative energy, that same negative interaction, that same spiritual detriment, that same lack of godliness, that same lack of righteousness, that same lack of love, that same lack of affection, that same lack of respect. What you have to understand is your body is going to do whatever it has to do to protect you. Mind, body, spirit, everything. So when it looks like selective memory, the mind subconsciously makes a subjective executive decision to suppress a memory which could potentially send you over the edge. Think about a time in life. Put a one in the chat if you ever been on the edge. This is a no judgment zone. Put a one in the chat if you've ever been on the edge. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. That song dropped in the early 80s. Think about it. Go back and listen to it. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, The Message. Go listen to it. It's like a jungle sometimes that makes me wonder how I keep from going under. A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you're going to do. You can grow up in the ghetto, living second rate, and your eyes will sing a song of deep hate. The place you play and where you stay looks like one great big alleyway. How traumatic is that experience? How many things have you experienced that your mind needed to suppress, that your mind needs to suppress now? You admire all the number book takers, G's, P's, and pushers, and the big money makers. They drive a big car, spend the 20s and 10s, and you want to grow up to be just like them, huh? You say, I'm cool, I'm no fool, but then you wind up dropping out of high school. Now you're unemployed, all non void, walking around like a pretty boy Floyd, playing stick up kid. Now look what you done did. Got sent up for an 8-year bid. Now your manhood is took and you're a Maytag. Spend the next 2 years as an undercover server, being used and abused. served like hell to one day you was found hung in your cell. Trauma. Your mind is trying to protect you from all of that trauma. That's its job, to protect you from all of that trauma. There's only so much a human psyche can stand. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. There's only so much the human psyche can bear. There's only so much the human mind can withstand. There's only so much you're built to endure in this human experience. And many people hit that point where they can't take anymore. But it's because they never dig deep enough to find out what the trauma is. See, our mind will suppress all of these things. But in totally ignoring these occurrences, our minds open the door to not only self doubt, but an overall disbelief in the safety of society. So you live in a shell. You're a shell of yourself, living in a shell of the world. And you think it's cool. You think it's cool that you don't like people, you don't like places, you don't want to go around anyone. You are a hermit. You are a person who has become a recluse, and you think being reclusive is fine. No. Liking your time alone is one thing, but being reclusive is something totally different. No man is an island. There's only so long you can stand alone. Hence, how, like I said earlier, one can despise all members of a particular group based on a traumatic experience with one member of that group, a couple of members of that group. For experience, you got an overbearing mother. It either draws you to that type of woman, or you think all women are like that, so you just avoid them all. You had an angry father. You grew up thinking all men are like that. Or you grew up being like that, so no one can do it to you first. You have jealous siblings. You can't even bond with friends. You can't even bond with people that actually support you. You can't identify people that actually support you because the last time you did that, your siblings became jealous. Help me understand, what are you supposed to do? Because here's the thing, these issues don't disappear because we forget about the causes. They don't disappear because we forget about the causes, man. They will not, they shall not, they cannot. It's not what we do. So what do you do, Doc? What do you do, King Ray Ray? How do you dig into these things comfortably? Because here's the thing, you can open up a can of worms, and you're going to be vulnerable when you open that can of worms. You're going to be very vulnerable, but you can do it. So even if you go to counseling, you still need I'll call the personal outpatient responsibilities that you must have for yourself. You can go to counseling, but when you come out of counseling, you're going to need some. Here's what you do. Surround yourself with positive energy. Only positive energy. Eliminate as much negative energy as you can from your environment. Because everything you're going to open up, boy, it's going to be a negative energy can of worms. You about to take the lid off a negative energy volcano that's been bustling to erupt for years of your life. Negative energy lava is going to shoot up to the clouds, man. You can't afford to, you got to have people around you that's ready to help you clean up that lava when it hit that ground and get cool. You got to clean it up before it turns into rock formations in your life. Once it turns into rock formations in your life, it's there forever, man. You can't afford to focus on the negative energy in your life when you're about to take the lid off a negative energy volcano. You can't do it. So you got to surround yourself with people who want the best for you, even if it means they don't gain anything. You got to have people around you who gain everything they need to gain from you by seeing you win, by seeing you overcome. Those people who are genuinely happy when you overcome, genuinely happy when you make progress, genuinely happy when you reach a goal, generally happy when you improve your process of progress to the point where it's working more effective and efficiently than it ever has. Genuinely love to see you smile, love to see you happy, love to see you laugh. Let me tell you something. If anyone around you is telling you that you don't need love in this world, they're telling you wrong. I don't care what anyone says. See, we're talking grown man talk right now. If anyone tells you that you don't need people around you who genuinely love your existence, who genuinely love what you stand for, who genuinely love who you are, who genuinely love how you affect their lives, who genuinely love that they can affect your life in a positive manner in return, then that huge volcano of negative energy lava will become a rock formation, a mountain, an island in your life. And until you can overflood that island with reciprocated love, you're never going to overcome. See, all the things in that volcano represent hate. You don't overcome hate with hate. You overcome hate with love. So a lot of times that volcano has made you hate yourself. Well, you overcome self-hate with self-love. It takes time to turn self-hate into self-love. But you can't do that if you got other people around you who ain't got no love for you. I'm telling you what I know. Keep playing these games thinking that you can be out here on an island by yourself and you don't need nobody and you don't need people in your corner and you don't need people supporting you. You will be on that island alone and you will sink into that ocean of self-hatred. Secondly, there are people who want to see you win, but you have to know the difference between people who want to see you win and people who want to see you win without an ulterior motive. Yes, a bunch of people can want to see you win. Anybody can want to see you win if they think there's a benefit from your win, but the people who want to see you win without an ulterior motive, you got to have people around you who are not attached to who you are, who are not attached to what you do. And it doesn't matter who those people are. You can't let society's determination of what value is determine in your mind that you're not going to have someone on your team who's in your corner. Think with your mind and your spirit and stop thinking with your loins, and you'll understand that there may be some women around you who can affect your life in a positive manner, but you're too busy trying to be in some type of intimate relationship with everybody. If that's meant to be, let it be. But you have to understand that you need positive energy around you. You need positive energy around you. And the last thing, you got to be in a judgment-free zone. Because when you take that lid off of that volcano of negative energy lava, there's going to be some things that you're going to uncover about yourself that have been suppressed. And some of those things could possibly be very, very painful or even very, very embarrassing. See, when you open that volcano, once that lava starts coming out, you can't put the top back on it. You got to let that thing shoot all that lava out until it comes down on its own and just start smoking. It may take a while. It's going to take some trial. It's going to take some error. It's going to take a whole lot of terror. Because I promise you, there's some thing. Think about what you're doing. You're taking the lid off a volcano that's holding all of the things that you don't recall. The things that your mind felt was so negative and so detrimental that it had to suppress to protect you. Now you're telling your mind, I don't need that protection anymore. Let me take on everything that is in that volcano. That's a huge step. Huge step. And I want y'all to understand how huge a step that is. It's a big move to make this move to prove to yourself that you are ready to become the best version of yourself. There's only way to become who God put you here to be. You have to eliminate the fears of crossing those lines, crossing those valleys, walking on those bridges, climbing those mountains, swimming those seas. You have to eliminate the fear, and that fear comes from your past traumas. You got to eliminate that. And here's another thing. That judgment-free zone, those people who want to see you win without ulterior motives, that positive energy has to be in the real world, not online, not social media. It got to be in the real world where those traumatic experiences took place. See, those things didn't take place on social media. It wasn't a social media post. It was something that happened in real life. It's something that's in the volcano with a lid on it. It ain't something that's on the internet so everybody can see forever. So remember, this is a real world experience because those are real world traumas. And the only way to get over those is to remember. You get over something in the same realm that you gathered the experience in the first place. Fixed in crypto. Appreciate the 10 bones, man. Through all of the hard time, praise the Most High, broken down like no other. Salute for the breakdown of this topic. Salute, man. I appreciate it. And here we go. Final thing. I didn't read your super chat until now because that's the final thing. The final thing is this. You got to put God first in everything you do. Because you're going to need the type of protection, the type of strength, the type of rescue mission that only God can perform. And so if you don't know him, you better get to know him. And for anybody who's telling you that he doesn't exist, don't worry about it. That big magical man in the sky, anybody who's telling you that, they're the first people you got to get rid of. Because that's the opposite of positive energy. That's the opposite of digging into yourself spiritually, mentally, in a judgment-free zone. That's the opposite of being in the real world. That's the opposite of surrounding yourself with people who want to see you win without an ulterior motive. Put God first in everything you do. To thine own self be true. And understand that taking the lid off that volcano is one of the most dangerous, but also one of the most satisfying and beneficial things you will ever do. Salute to the Green Label Gang. Salute to the Mod Squad. Famo, salute. Y'all brother, enjoy the rest of your day, man. Put God first. Keep grinding and growing. Peace.